Hi, it's Ray from ProShaper Workshop in Charlton, Massachusetts, and this is the Maserati 300S aluminum body that the students have been making. The students have made all of these panels. It's on a wireform, and on today's video, what I want to show you is something I've been hopping on, is how good the wireform is to allow you to make vehicles like this or bodies like this. We have all these other panels. I got them off temporarily here. And what I wanted to feature today was this panel here. This is one of the most difficult panels on the car. There's a bunch of reverse curve difficult panels, but this one is exceptionally difficult. And I would say it's almost absolutely impossible for a beginner to make that panel, with the exception of if you use a little bit different technique. Why does it make it so difficult? Well, look at all the complexity of that reverse curve, and this is going to be a little vent for the brake cooling, and all these panels will get welded together. We have this section of the rear of the fender, that's all done. But this panel was started as a flat panel by one of the students a couple months ago, one of the other classes. I unfortunately can't remember his name. And it started out as a flat sheet. You bend it a little bit. You put it over the wires. And a solution to making this panel fit is to do a lot of stretching. You would have to stretch this section of the panel quite a bit in order to get that panel to create that reverse curve of the panel. Then it has to go down into this pocket, and by the time you got done, the metal would be so thin. So the real solution to making this panel is this reverse curve section has to be shrunk right in here. Well, how do you shrink that? There's a couple different ways. I've shown before you can use those little formers that I have that will allow you to shrink in the center of the panel by gathering the metal here, and that's all done cold. But one of the beauties of, or the great features of a wireform is that you can easily clamp to it. So I use these little rubber tipped standard little squeeze clamps. Get them from Home Depot. They're still 99 cents a piece. And slowly but sure, what you do is you take a torch, and I had done a video probably a year ago with the 550 Porsche showing how you can use a torch, the standard acetylene torch with like a number 2 welding tip. You heat a little section up at a time, hit it with the hammer, and you can shrink it in. I taught that technique to the student a couple of months ago, and he got it almost conforming to the wire. And another student did the one on the other side, and you can see how this is all going to come together here. This one is about an inch from the wire right now currently, so it's going to need a lot more. This one yesterday, another student, Tim, came in, and he continued on with the shrinking process. And now he's got it, as you can see here, he's got it conforming to the wires. And in the process, we found out a few of the wires were a little high. So all you need to do is, you can determine that by the surface flow of the panel. And I just had him take off the panel and grind the wire where it was a little high. It still needs a little tweaking, but the panel is looking really, really good. And like as I mentioned, it's a super complicated panel. Right in this spot here, it's going to need a little hammer and dolly work. It got punched in a little bit too much with the mallets and the hammers that we use to bring this against the wire. So that's going to have to be corrected. And there are still a few little minor imperfections. But overall, Tim did a great job. And it's something you can't do on a wood station buck. And when I say I don't like wood bucks, it's really the wood station buck that's the real culprit. That's the one that everybody seems to have affinity towards, because they can get a CAD file and they can cut that wood station buck out in a short while, and with a CNC router, and then put the whole thing together, and they think that they've got this tremendous representation of the body, but they don't understand how difficult it is to fit the panels to that wood station buck. And you can't do hammer forming like this with the heat and create that panel like that. Now, another benefit of the wire is that it's magnetic, so you can put patterns on it, paper patterns, and use the magnets to hold it. And you can also, when we get all these panels fitting and flowing right, we'll take and weld right on the buck, meaning we'll get it all clamped up, tack it up. At that point, it becomes a solid entity. We'll bring it over to the bench, weld it up, put it back on the buck, and make sure it's all fitting properly. So I just wanted to show you that today, what can be done with a wireform buck. You can heat shrink right on it. You can do this with steel, you can do it with aluminum, you can do it with copper. It doesn't matter whether you're making a sculpture or a car or whatever you're doing. There's a tremendous benefit to using a wireform over a wood station buck. The full surface wood bucks, that's a total different story. Everybody knows the Cobra wood buck that AC made all the Cobras on. That is a full surface buck where you actually hammer form a lot of the panels right on the buck. So just wanted to make sure you knew the difference between the wireform, the wood station buck, and a solid wood buck. They all have different characteristics. Personally, I like this wireform. It just, like as I've mentioned many times, it just has all those characteristics that make it favorable to making a complex body like this 300S Maserati. So I hope you learned something. It's Ray from ProShaper Workshop. Thanks for watching.